Hey, what's up? It's me, Po-Hindu, or as you know me, the spiritual philanthropist. Um, I see there's a lot of videos being made about not just the Mandela effect, but quite a few other things. Uh, they have some things going on in the world that are being brought to light now, and even myself, I'm learning as we go also. So there's a lot of things that's definitely news to me. What can I say? Uh, I made a video before about the Mandela effect, and when I made this video, I put this out right after, shortly after I had an experience, and I checked out what the Mandela effect was. But then I know that I'd already been studying some other things related to physics, and found out they had something called uh, quantum computing by D-Wave. When I found that out, I started researching it, and they work on what you call quantum annealing, which is really interesting. And when I made the video about the Mandela effect, I spoke about it a month and a few days before D-Wave, the actual company that makes quantum computers, put out their own video. One of the guys that actually works, in that department, he's a physicist also, or a quantum computer engineer, if you want to call it what they call themselves. But he's one of those guys, and he basically reiterated, in a much more simplistic fashion, what I stated, and it was just really me speculating about the idea. So it kind of confirmed for me that what I spoke about a month and a half before D-Wave actually came out and said it was pretty much on the money, and nobody recognizes that. But I've been known to do that, so I'm going to keep doing it. One of the other things I want to talk about was people don't seem to get the idea of Dr. James Gates, who's a physicist for the White House for Obama, and he's doing some great research. I don't know if you've been keeping up to date with physics and everything that's happened in the last few years. Tyson DeGrasse had him on I think it's something to do with an organization for Isaac Asimov, and they have this thing every year where they get all these great physicists, philosophers, and geneticists, and they all get up there and they talk. Well, I had known about Professor James Gates a while ago, and it was interesting because the research he was doing was amazing. He was basically looking into string theory. Within looking to into string theory, he found embedded within basically the construct of what we would call the matrix or reality, he found something very, very fascinating. He found embedded in there a computer code, and I was fascinated when they said that, a computer code. But it wasn't just any random computer code. It was what he calls the error correcting code that was developed, I think, in the 1940s or something like that, or 50s. And I think that was the date. I'm not sure. And when he said error correcting code, I was trying to figure out exactly what that was. And he explained it. He said that basically when you open a browser, all right, if some of the contents or the information isn't translated, the error correcting code goes in there and fills it in, right? So you get the illusion, of whatever they were trying to do. The reason I use the word illusion because it is information just being, put together a certain way so you can see a web page, right? When you open a browser. So when he said that he found that embedded within, the construct of reality or the matrix of reality, I was fascinated by this. So I don't see how people cannot see the correlation between what D-Wave is doing with quantum computing and what Professor James Gates has discovered, because everything is based on perception. If I'm not wrong, here, everything is based on perception. It's how we perceive things. So if everything is based on perception, then Professor James Gates is onto something huge. And I would say as big as finding out what we really are and how we are actually here, and maybe even the people or the beings or whatever is maintaining this construct, so he's onto something huge. And I think the reason that he found the error correcting codes embedded within the I'll just use the word the matrix, or you can just think the constructs of reality. I believe that our perceptions are being played with in however this construct is set up. That's why in the Matrix, in the movie, you saw the glitch where people saw, when you have like a deja vu moment. I mean, I don't know if that's real or not, but to me, that makes a little bit of sense in some ways, because if everything is really being processed through the mind, we could already actually be programmed just to perceive only this. But if we can override our own programming, think about it, override our own programming in our minds, we could actually see beyond that error correcting code that's holding this illusion, that people want to call it reality, holding it together. Now, the only way for me personally that I think, which I've done in the past, I'm writing a book right now called Quantum Realization, It's about the experiences I've had doing mantra, and I can tell you it was scary as hell. It was interesting, but it also opened my if you want to call it third eye, whatever you want to say, but it opened my perspective to a much bigger and deeper understanding of what this is, you know, the existence. I believe more in that than I do in this body. I can tell you that. There's something strange going on. I can't really put my finger on it yet, but I know I get close because whenever I do videos or anything, they're always messed with consistently by YouTube, Facebook, even like almost any social media group always messes with it. The reason is because I think that it's messed with is because I hit things on the head pretty good, meaning that I come to great conclusions, because a lot of the times after I say something, very shortly after, they come out and actually, you know, put it out to the public. And I believe that once I had, you know, had that ability to go through this reality with that meditation and the mantra that I did, and this is in the book that I'm going to be writing soon. Once I had that experience, and I don't want to say out of body or whatever it was, but I can tell you that it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. And I was 24 years old. You know, I'm 46 now. I was 24 years old, and I was down to eating one meal a day, and I was working out consistently, and I started doing a lot of yoga. And at that point, my very first time that I did a very deep mantra, you know, a very old mantra, I had an experience on it. You know, I don't know what to say about that, but it was real. I know it's real because 4 years later, I read the book Living with the Himalayan Masters, Swami Rama. And basically, he also had almost the exact same situation that I was in. And I couldn't figure that out. And this is 4 years later. I thought I was just dreaming, that I just fell asleep sitting up. It wasn't a dream. I actually I don't know how to explain. I don't know if I went to another field of perception or dimension. You know, I'm not sure what it was, but it was fascinating. It actually was the reason why I stopped eating meat and became vegan. You know, I can just tell you basically what happened is that I became an animal that was going to be killed, and in the process, just because someone was hungry, and those were the last words that I asked. I was like, "You're going to kill me just because you're hungry?" You know, I don't know if they could hear me, but I was really small, and they were going to hit me with a piece of wood really hard, or you know, or you know, a tree branch, a big tree branch, you know, and you know, that changed my perspective on a lot of things. But Swami Rama had almost the very similar incidents, so that made me realize that whatever I did, whatever experience I had, was not just something that I dreamt up, because it's actually something that it's like a level that you go through with mantra and meditation. So it's led me to believe quite a bit about what Professor James Gates is seeing. You know, if he's seeing error correcting codes within the fabric of the universe, you know, the makeup of this existence, whatever we call the matrix, the construct of the, you know, of the matrix, if you want to say, then, you know, everything is based in perception. Again, you know, he's going from a scientific point of view. At some point, these two worlds will merge because they're getting closer and closer every day. Physics will merge with consciousness in the aspect of Eastern philosophy, meaning that the metaphysical and the physical will come together at some point. But I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know what's going to happen when that, you know, when that time comes. But whether, you know, whatever CERN is doing, D-Wave, quantum computing, we're messing with stuff now, you know, which is really jumping beyond our field of perception as human beings. So, you know, we're dealing in some great areas, but at the same time, you know, even the ancient sages of India had said that we really don't need any external things, you know, equipment to be able to pierce this veil of illusion. We can actually do that through going inward. I believe that I've done something like that, and I don't know exactly if it was, but I'm not saying I'm enlightened. I'm saying I had an experience. You know, many people want to make the mistake or accuse me of, oh, he's saying he's enlightened. I'm like, no, not at all. You know, I know I'm not enlightened. I'm a jackass deep down inside. I like to goof off all the time. I make flaws like everybody else, but I do know that there is something more to this reality than what we've been told, and what science is saying. And, you know, as time goes by and technology develops, they're coming closer and closer, and they're actually gaining more of an understanding of the Eastern philosophies, all the ancient philosophies. I don't want to just base it on Eastern, but you go back all the way to, I mean, there's so many different cultures around the world that kind of say the same thing. If you go back thousands of years, you know, this is fascinating stuff. If you're into this stuff, I'm telling you, the book that I'm writing is going to blow your mind, because there's a lot of things that happened to me in life. Not that I'm pushing the book, but I am. I don't know. But You know, I'm doing it for a reason. I don't know why I'm writing it, but I'm going to. Uh, I don't know, guys. You know, if you guys have any feedback about this, any questions, you know, hit me up with it. You know, I've seen so many people make videos about this, and a lot of them talk about like all the things that, you know, like other people have experienced, and you see like, here's an example of the Mandela effect. Here's this. Here's somebody else talking about it. I'm telling you straight up, you know, this is what I think. I speculate. I give you my actual, you know, reasoning behind why I'm speculating. You know, so it's not just based on somebody else's thoughts. It's based on my own original, unique thoughts that I have. So I think that's important. I always like people that have thoughts, their own thoughts. They're the most fascinating to me. It gets me bored to hear someone repeat other people's thoughts all the times, you know? So, you know, if you're one of those people that have your own thoughts, you want to share them, well, I'm more than open, because I believe that if we take our discovery and exploration in a way that's open source, like an open source code, that if you have something good to add to it to make it better, you know, it's accepted, and anybody can do that, add to it and make it better. So I throw things out there. I throw ideas out there like an open source code, hoping that someone else has something to add to it. So that's what I'm hoping, is that whatever I put out there now, you guys may have something to actually add to it. You know, so if you haven't checked out Professor James Gates, check him out. You can look up error correcting codes embedded within string theory, you know. It's fascinating. He also talks about supersymmetry, which is dealt with in quantum computing. So if you're familiar with supersymmetry, you know that in quantum computing they use the idea of supersymmetry. Basically, when you have bits, you can either have ones or zeros, right? But that can go on forever, right? The only difference is that you have an increase in the time that can happen when you go into supersymmetry, because now you don't just have 1 and 0, you have 1 and 0 at the same time, right? So this can exponentially develop and make things much faster, you know. That's the next wave of technology, you know. I mean, we're moving into, you know, beyond light speed type of shit here when it comes to information. So you know, I hope that you guys really, if you're really interested in it, you go out and you check it out, and you really research for yourself. You know, like I said, I believe the next big phase is what Professor James Gates is doing with the error correcting codes, because everything is based in perception. You know, they're going to find some equation, some formula that's going to help us to get past our own field of perception, not like a microscope or a telescope, but in our understanding. So the perception of understanding is also, to me, another field of perception. So some people have that developed, and some people don't even know what it is. I consider it almost like a sixth sense, maybe, you know. And I use that in a very, very logical way when I say that understanding is another field of perception. So I hope you understand that. As funny as it sounds, but there's a lot of great things that are going to happen in the very near future, you know. And I think that if more people are tapped in, that they will understand what's happening, you know. So just think of what I said earlier about, you know, we have been programmed to only perceive a certain amount of things. If we can break that programming, and the way I said to break it was through using meditation and mantra to clear the pathways in the mind, right? And then not to even reprogram, but to leave it open, you know, as a conduit, you know, for information. I believe that we're going to discover things through, you know, through that source, through that way, you know. I kind of see the universe itself as an open source code, meaning that everybody's adding to it and making it, hopefully making it better. You know, I believe that's how the universe was formed, because it had to be something like an open source code where every bit of existence was adding to it continuously until we had planets. So, you know, we went from nothing to something and to life and, you know, beyond, you know. And it probably took maybe millions, hundreds of millions, billions of years to progress to where we're at now. Maybe, you know, I don't even want to speculate on consciousness itself, because it's just such a far reach for us right now, you know. So I will speculate on you know, the quantum aspects of matter, you know, and supersymmetry, you know, multidimensional ideas. But consciousness itself, I can't even begin to fathom where and how that one came about. I would have to say that it's almost, to me, like not exactly like the Borg, if you ever watch Star Trek, but we're connected. We're all connected to something much larger, you know. And our consciousness, to me, is that connection to whatever is out there. So, like, instead of reaching outward from the senses, that if we go inside and we tap into the consciousness more, clear out all the junk, Erase all the trash, delete all the trash and extra files, leave room, be a conduit, be open. You will receive and understand beyond your perception of this reality, right? Because you're not using anything that you would need to use in this reality, like the five senses, right? So if you go beyond the five senses, to me, that's logical. It's very logical. So I hope you guys will just, try that for yourself. I don't know what else to tell you, but I'm going to be making more, obviously I have a bunch of crazy ass videos that I do. I'm an entertainer. I love to perform. Creative things for me are the most fun to do. So you're going to see a lot of, I don't, plus, I have this whole yoga background and whatnot, but I don't let that define me as who I am and only that one aspect. I believe human beings have many aspects to us. And I like to, be a complete human being and have all those aspects of being funny, being nerdy whenever I'm ready, and being stoic whenever I have to be. So I'm human, and I hope that you guys all have those aspects to yourself also. So, and accept those aspects. You don't need to be just one thing like the show on TV where they have these characters that are always the same, and that's another way of programming us to be, a specific character. You don't have to be a character, you can just be yourself, whatever that is, and that might stick out in society. Well, fuck them, it's like, just be yourself. The more you can be truly honest with yourself, the more you can really define yourself, so really, really be honest, in your expression, and you will find yourself with that honesty and that truthfulness in your expression. At least I really fully believe so. I believe so since I was a kid. I'll leave you with that, and I will be back on maybe later tonight or maybe tomorrow, depending how I feel. All right. So spread the word about the video, and if you haven't watched the whole video, watch it. You might learn something there, and you might have something to say about it. I'd be very interested to hear, because like I said, it's an open source code, just like I said the universe is, all right? Everybody and everything added to it to make it what it is today. So we have to take that same pattern and use it. All right, guys, over and out. Peace, and I'll talk to you guys soon. All right, keep your minds open, honestly express yourselves, and we'll have a lot of fun learning and discovering and exploring together. All right, have a much, much most beautiful and blissful night, day in life. Talk to you later. Bye. So the broadcast is starting now, it appears. Hey, what's up? It's me, Hindu, or as you know me, the spiritual philanthropist. I see there's a lot of videos being made about not just the Mandela effect, but quite a few other things. They have some things going on in the world that are being brought to light now, and even myself, I'm learning as we go also. So there's a lot of things that's definitely news to me. What can I say? I made a video before about the Mandela effect, and when I made this video, I put this out right after, shortly after I had an experience, and I checked out what the Mandela effect was. But then I know that I'd already been studying some other things related to physics, and found out they had something called quantum computing by D-Wave. When I found that out, I started researching it, and they work on what you call quantum annealing, which is really interesting. And when I made the video about the Mandela effect, I spoke about it a month and a few days before D-Wave, the actual company that makes quantum computers, put out their own video. One of the guys that actually works, in that department, he's a physicist also, or a quantum computer engineer, if you want to call it what they call themselves. But he's one of those guys, and he basically reiterated, in a much more simplistic fashion, what I stated, and it was just really me speculating about the idea. So it kind of confirmed for me that what I spoke about a month and a half before D-Wave actually came out and said it was pretty much on the money, and nobody recognizes that. But I've been known to do that, so I'm going to keep doing it. One of the other things I want to talk about was people don't seem to get the idea of Dr. James Gates, who's a physicist for the White House for Obama, and he's doing some great research. I don't know if you've been keeping up to date with physics and everything that's happened in the last few years. Tyson DeGrasse had him on I think it's something to do with an organization for Isaac Asimov, and they have this thing every year where they get all these great physicists, philosophers, and geneticists, and they all get up there and they talk. Well, I had known about Professor James Gates a while ago, and it was interesting because the research he was doing was amazing. He was basically looking into string theory. within looking to, into string theory, he found embedded within basically the construct of what we would call the matrix, or